Hi, I'm Rosary Fazende-Jones. This is my first video for this class, Generation Text. I apologize in advance for 3 things. 1, I have a head cold, so I'm stuffed up and I can't tell how loud I actually am. 2, I hate making videos. It's not my medium. 3, it's been snowing all day, so I really feel worse than I probably am. But let me go ahead. In this, our first aha video, we're supposed to respond to chapter 1, our first reading into the NPR article, and our research reading. And I have to say, reading the book, the first chapter wasn't that exciting, but it's a first chapter. It seemed really negative to me compared to a great deal of my own personal experiences. As I said in my introductory post, I teach college freshmen. So I've been dealing with the digital generation or generation text for a good long time now. And millennials and Generation Z, or whatever we wish to call this group, aren't nearly as confused, excessive, lacking in work ethic as a lot of people make them out to be. Part of this is a generation gap. Part of this, as I very well remember, I'm the first year of Generation X, or slackers, and we heard a lot of the same stuff. And I think one of the things that I realized reading the book is how false and how arbitrary these generation definitions really are. If I had been born 1 year earlier, I'd be a baby boomer. 12 months later, I'm Gen X. There's not that much difference between me and someone born in 64. There's a heck of a lot of difference between me and someone born in 1945. To say that's a whole generation is a little odd to me. If baby boomers were busy doing the civil rights marches in 1968, that was a really prodigal 4-year-old who was born in 1964. So one of the things that the book raised for me was how arbitrary these definitions are. The other thing that I found odd after reading it were his examples. He compared a kid in 1968 to an imaginary kid in 1998, I think it was. Or 2008, I've forgotten, and I don't feel like hunting my Kindle up right now to find it. But the arbitrariness of that was utterly odd, and it took out and it sandwiched 2 very different groups of people, and it left out kids who were latchkey kids, it left out kids who were born in the 70s. It just seems so arbitrary and so false. And stereotyped. Here's this kid with a perfect family. The first example from 68 almost felt like I watched a Leave to Beaver episode. And then it was like watching an after-school special, for those of you who get that reference, for the second one. It was just so off. Just so off. And then his tone is somewhat negative. Now, granted, he's a child psychologist. He probably sees a lot of problem children. So maybe his interactions are with more troubled children than mine. But, again, the whole how we can raise children who are not greedy, excessive, and blah, blah, blah. That's not the reality I see. The children or young adults I deal with are not grasping. They aren't lazy. No more than in any other generation, I should say. They are not damaged by the internet. Or at least if they are, I haven't seen it, and they're no more damaged than me, and I met my husband through the internet. The other thing I found is the book's a little dated. He talks a lot about 2008, just as the NPR article we listened to talked about 2008. And I was struck, especially by the NPR article, with the differences in just 8 short years about generations. In 2008, Facebook was new. Facebook was the thing. 2016, I talked to my students, about social media. Facebook's passé. Facebook's what their grandparents and their parents used. They've moved on. They're someone else. They're on Snapchat or Yik Yak or Friendster. Not Friendster. Oh, there's another one I can't think of the name of. They're on all these things. I'm on Facebook and on Twitter. And that's about as far as I go. I can't keep up. But for them, it's natural. And when I listened to the NPR article, it just made me realize how quickly technology has moved. And how much and how arbitrary those generational divides really are in a lot of ways. Because to say someone born in 1981 and someone born in 1993 are going to adapt to technology the same way is different. Which was one of the things I found when I was doing my research. I was looking and I found a study that was looking at first and second generation digital natives and their use of technology. And it wasn't a fascinating study, and it said they approached it differently. Big surprise. My own personal experience shows that. If I look back just 8 years ago, a lot of my students came in knowing more about computers than I did and wanting to go into computer fields. It was the thing. Now, they're all on their cell phones. They're all on social media. They know how to swipe. Some of them want to write apps. Mostly they're into the immediacy of it. And I think what you can see coming up is there's no original net generation anymore. There are two. There are the ones who were born when computers, or whose primarily technology interaction was on a computer. And those kids are different than the ones I'm seeing now whose primary technology interactions were with a smartphone or a tablet. It's just different. The kids who had a computer thought a little differently, reacted a little differently, were a little bit more cautious or a little bit more tech into it. They were into the hardware side of things and programming stuff. The kids I have now are really into social media. They're really into the immediacy. They're really into connecting. But I don't think, pardon me, that they I know they don't get the consequences. I asked my 2006 Composition 1 students last semester to talk a lot about social media. We got sick of it. And they had to read a bunch of articles about it, and they read some like by Sherry Turkle and a couple others who argue that technology is alienating. And they could see that. But overall, they thought it allows us to connect with people we wouldn't know, and that's a good thing. They may be right. I don't think the consequences have been reached yet. I think it's too early to know. But I do think we also have to recall those early millennials, the ones born in 1983. That's the year I graduated high school. They're in their 30s. They're having children. Their children will be the third generation to grow up with this kind of technology, this internet connection. We haven't seen where this will take us. And as technology becomes more portable, wearable, virtual, I don't know. And I don't know that stuff from 2008 is helping. I don't know that there's anything more recent. When I was doing my research, and we're supposed to look in the last 5 years, academically, either I had really bad search terms, always a possibility, or there's not nearly as much out there as there should. Now academia runs slow, So that's always possible. But I don't think we've really gotten a handle on it. And I think looking at these kids as a group is one thing. Condemning them as a group is another. And blaming millennials for stuff they didn't control or blaming any generation is pointless. We have to see where the consequences take us. And we have to hope to go for the best. So I don't know that I had an aha moment. So much as just a simple recognition of something I think I already knew in the back of my head. And that's that generations are arbitrary names we give to groups of people who may or may not have a lot of stuff in common. And maybe some of those qualities will turn out to be better than we expect them to be. Thanks for listening. Hopefully next week my cold is gone and I sound more normal and I'm more focused. Thanks a bunch. Bye, classmates.